Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is our episode 87, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Tonight we got Ewan with us.
Hello.
No Larry yet, but at any time he might just appear. So we'll have to wait and see for that one. And no Jess either. Not sure where she is at the moment, but hopefully back next week. Now, we did miss it last week, and my apologies for that. So this is the first one for 2 weeks. Yeah. So what we've been up to? I've had an amazing week. I've been working with a guy from New York.
No.
He's older than me, believe it or not. He's an electrician, but not as experienced in the UK, I don't think. And it's been crazy because he's from Manhattan, New York, and he's just relentless in his banter and things. So it's been quite entertaining to be back on site again. Yeah, really enjoyed it. And not a lot else really, because it's been so bloody hot. And yeah, I've been in the pool a bit and been playing guitar a lot. Picked that up again recently, so I've been smashing that out.
Nice.
But yeah, it's been all right. It's been all right. And obviously, I watched The Northman, which I'm going to chat about. Can't wait for Larry to get in. What have you been up to then, Ewan? What have you been watching?
Well, I mean, I'm sort of currently nursing a hangover because I had my first ever stag night last night, which I mean, it was great. I mean, it was sort of I'm I mean, to be honest, I was never really that into partying and stuff when I was the best for it. But as I get older, I'm just I can do less and less, if you know what I mean. And even though I only had a few drinks, a few cocktails, a shot or two or whatever, I still feel hungover, and I think that's a lot of it's down to the heat. I think that just exacerbates the the hangover. So I'm just currently in a dazed state. And,
Are you having one? Are you having a drink?
Not currently.
That would help, I would have thought.
I think I'm just sticking
you
to
do.
water.
You're starting to look a little bit rough now, actually. Sorry.
It's no surprise. I mean, it was funny the stag night as well, because there were people. Because it's sort of a belated stag night from when I went to the wedding in Poland. It's sort of happening after the wedding, and it's funny because there were two people there who I thought I hadn't met before. So I was sort of saying, who are you and stuff like that, and then it turned out that one of them I'd already met at the wedding and just completely forgotten who they were. It's just sort of classic, really. It's just sort of it's one of those things. It's like when you go to a wedding, there's like at least 100 people there, and just like sort of days of faces, and you just and I just had no idea who he was. It's like who are you? And it's like, oh, we've met before. I was like, oh, have we? But all that embarrassment, it was quite a good night.
Nice. Well, I wish the guys were here tonight, because I really wanted to hear Jess's opinion of Dream Warriors. And Marco's with us. Salou. What does Salou? Is that in foreign? That sounds foreign to me.
Yeah, well, Salou is well, I think that there is it's in French, so there's a French greeting. I think it's in Italian as well, but I think that's salute actually. I think that's a different sort of. But I think I'm going with French. I'm going with
French. All right, like all right. You're all right.
Although Marco, I think is an Italian name, isn't it? I don't know.
I think it is an Italian name. You have to let us know, Marco. Let us know in the chat. So it's a 1987 fantasy slasher film. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors, directed by Chuck Russell. I think he did The Mask, which I liked. And obviously that amazing film, The Rock in The Scorpion King. So you've seen that, yeah?
I think I have. I think I have. Wasn't that the first role that The Rock, aka Dwayne Johnson, took?
Maybe one of his first ones. Yeah, it's definitely early on.
Yeah, it wasn't a prequel to the Mummy movies. So I think he was introduced in the second Mummy movie, and then they made a prequel on him. I
Wow.
have very little memory of it, if I'm honest.
I need to redo that one. The story by Wes Craven had a budget of 4 million and a box office of 44 million. And I am jumping ahead tonight, and I haven't even done my my introduction bit. So let's do that now. Well, can I spit this out? A psychiatrist familiar with dream demon Freddy Krueger helps teens at a mental hospital battle the killer who is evading their dreams. Now, how do these kids, right? They're the last children of the people that killed Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, the first
And
Children on Elm Street.
yes, and they all managed to be in the same mental hospital, which is incredible.
It's incredibly
Um,
coincidental, yeah.
Believable? I'm not so sure, but it's yeah, Rotten Tomatoes. What are you thinking?
I actually, I think this would be relatively high, probably not as high as the first one. I'm gonna say maybe in the 70s.
Yep, 71.
71. Nah,
Yep,
yeah.
71. It starred Heather Langenkamp as Nancy, Patricia
Yep.
Arquette as Kristen. Is it Kristen or Kirsten? It's Kristen, isn't it? Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger and Larry Fishburne
Yeah.
as Max Daniels. So
In
we
an
have
early role.
Morpheus,
Yes.
Larry Fishburne.
I
Is it
think
Fishburne?
it's quite fun, that fact as well, that he's in it, because I mean, you know, the Matrix is all about dreams of some kind. I think Morpheus, I think that name, it's definitely derived in sort of Greek myths, and I think that's to do with dreams as well. So it's quite a weird where his journey led to.
So started in
considering this film.
dreams, finished in dreams. Larry is it Fishburne? Fishburne, isn't it? It's Fishburne.
Yeah, I think it's Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've just bullet pointed some bits and pieces. I can't spit my words out again tonight. It's gonna be one of those nights. So my bullet points, which was things I found interesting. The superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get onto
Well, in
that.
the dreams anyway.
In the
Yeah.
dreams, they had superpowers. And I'll put they've all the kids are in the same institution somehow.
Yeah.
He was the bastard son of 100 rapists, which is an
Yeah.
interesting. I
Well,
don't know
yeah. Well,
how that works somehow.
I think the quote is bastard son of 100 maniacs.
Maniacs,
Who you're right, who did who
right?
raped a nun, I think.
But they did only one of the kind of. It'd only be this, one of them would be the dad, not all of them.
Yeah. Well, this
But,
is where the sort of, like, I suppose the fantasy invades on the the science of whatever. So it kind of goes into sort of, like, I suppose, mythological territory, and they're sort of expanding the mythology of Freddy at this point. I think after the sort of the second one, which, I mean, as we've covered, I really really hated. I think a lot of people hated it in a similar way, and they wanted to make it make that they wanted to make the series more sort of, I don't know, sort of sumptuous in something. So they just sort of the third one, I think, was intended to bring in the rules of Freddy Krueger and the world of Freddy Krueger into something that was more substantial than was perhaps given off by the second one. So I think it's quite an interesting in terms of the screenwriting history of this film, because actually the first draft of the script was written by Wes Craven and someone whose name escapes me at the moment. I think his name is Bruce something, but he sorry, I got it here. Yeah, Bruce Wagner. Sorry. It's funny because their first draft of the script was apparently something a bit more surreal and abstract. I think I watched an interview with Bruce Wagner, who said that he was trying to do something that was closer to Louis Buñuel, who's like, you know, a kind of a Spanish art house director from like the 1940s, who I'm a big fan of, but I'm not sure if that really fits with sort of mainstream horror. I'm not sure.
Right.
But I'm quite curious to see what that script would have looked like. But then Frank Darabont came on, so the guy who wrote and direct, who would later write and direct Shawshank Redemption and The Mist. He wrote a second draft of the screenplay with Chuck Russell, who directed it, and they're the ones who sort of brought it into a more franchising mindset, I guess, to establish the rules, to make it a bit more mainstream, and to have fun with it. I think a lot of the fun of the third film, which kind of establishes Freddy's like sort of weird personality.
Yeah, definitely
I think this is the first film where he like keeps calling everyone bitch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think this is that was sort of their way of setting up more movies with him in mind, I think. And I think I think it really works. It's funny because I hadn't seen this film prior to now, basically.
Oh wow.
Okay. And the reason I had stopped, I had seen 1 and 2 before doing Bones Horror podcast, but I stopped after 2 because I thought I was restating it. I really hated 2 to the point where I didn't want to continue on with the rest of the franchise because I was like, if this is the second one, then what are the others going to be like?
I quite liked it.
And yeah, I know.
An interesting thing, there's a Hampshire HorrorCon soon. And the lead actor from the second one is there. So that should be quite fun. I think we should all go to that anyway. It's only in Southampton, as you know.
Yeah.
At the old cricket ground. So we could all do that. But I'd like to meet him, actually. I actually quite like it. So
yeah.
I'll disagree with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to meet Mark Patton because Mark Patton's I sort of away from the franchise. I think actually a genuinely nice guy, and he's quite an interesting actor. But I think Dream Warriors kind of made up for that. I mean, at least for me, it made up for the fact for that film. I think because it did have a lot of fun, and I thought the deaths were far more creative. I think these were the most creative deaths so far.
Yes.
And they all had to do with it's funny the kind of the setup. So you got all these kids in a mental asylum, I mean institution, whatever, who all have the same basic dream or dreams with Freddy, but they've all, and this is what the second one didn't really capture. They're all to do with essentially things specific to them, and often there's a kind of, it kind of follows and I'm not an expert on this person, keep in mind, but with Freud and sort of Sigmund Freud and his theories on dreams is that they have to do with wish fulfillment and how that's repressed and everything like that. And with each of these kids, it is all about that. So a lot of the things that they wish they were, they end up becoming in their dreams, and that forms the basis of them being dream warriors, and that they eventually learn how to fight Freddy using the sort of wish fulfillment powers that they have.
What were their skills again? Well, you had one that just had a pocket knife, didn't she? She was a bit rubbish. I thought her power.
Yeah, there was but I think Patricia Arquette's character is very sort of gymnastic with her sort of power.
She can jump about a bit. Yeah,
jump about a bit. There's a guy who can turn into a D&D magician.
Yes,
which was a bit strange, but actually fine. There was I don't know if it's the same guy, but the guy who can sort of just walk out of his wheelchair, which is a really interesting one because I'm being disabled myself. It's quite an interesting. I always find it quite interesting how disability is portrayed in film, especially in terms of horror cinema. I wasn't too bothered by this, but but it is funny how like a lot of people think that being in a wheelchair is just the worst thing in the world, and and it's funny how it's depicted here. It's like the wheelchair is like some sort of it resembles like equipment of torture or something like
Yeah,
that as it comes down the thing. And I don't want to speak for all people who who have a disabled experience, because I'm sure a lot of them, when they started out being disabled, didn't like it that much. But it's an interesting dynamic. But I still I still enjoyed all of that, because I think, even though it's it's a pulpy film and it's meant to be entertaining rather than broadly intelligent, which is fine. But I really like the sort of psychological aspects of this film, and I think it made it far more effective, especially when you've got the specifics. So I mean, I think my favorite of the deaths is I think he's like a wannabe puppeteer, and sort of how Freddy like tortures him and eventually kills him is that he like, I don't know, he's like, pulls all like the muscles and the veins out of his body
that's amazing.
and operates him like a puppet.
Yeah,
Which freaked me out, I gotta say. I mean, again, I didn't have that many expectations of this film, but seeing that, it's really freaky, and it's scary.
It's funny you mentioned the puppetry, because I had I've been trying to do a couple of off Rotten Tomatoes, a couple of reviews just to show everyone, and these were the not so good ones. So there was one that, it's a shame that this is as good as it got for the series, and they're probably right. It does pretty much go downhill. And then this one, poor puppetry from BJ at number 10. So I don't think he's at number 10 any longer, but yeah. So yeah, poor puppetry. But I thought there was some the what's it called? The stop motion stuff. Is that what you call it? There was plenty of that in it.
I thought it was very good.
I thought it looked fake as you like. But it was good.
Yeah.
So what's Larry? Because Larry's in a vehicle at the moment, somewhere. I find this film delivers in great and unique deaths with fantastic special effects. A story that knows what it is and has fun with its premise, and Freddy actually being a real presence. Yeah, Larry's getting. It must have taken him ages to type that. I find that this film, is that the same one, Larry?
Yeah, it's the same one. I think he's posted it twice.
Yeah, well, okay, Larry. I was just about to read that all again then. Hopefully Larry be here soon, but he's I'm not sure where he is at the moment. He can't be that far away.
Then also but also the another favorite death is the television one, which I think is probably one of the most famous. I mean, it starts off I found it remarkable how they managed to do certain things. So they got Dick Cavett, who's a very famous chat show host in America. Probably, I think our equivalent is probably like Michael Parkinson or something. He interviewed people like Woody Allen a lot, and people through history, sort of 60s, 70s sort of thing. And to see him in this environment was
not that prick from Gavin and Stacey.
No, not James Corden. No,
that's it.
James Corden is the very modern equivalent, I suppose. But it was weird seeing him there, because it was like, because he's a very cultured man. I didn't think he'd go for something like this, but he's there interviewing Jar Jar Gabor, and I only know the name. I don't know what she does, but apparently she's quite famous. But then for him to turn around and just to basically say shut the fuck up, and then turn into Freddy is one of the most inspired things. And it just, and then obviously it's for one of the kids who has aspirations to be a Hollywood actress, or a TV actress, I should say. And she watches TV all the time, and this is part of Freddy's thing, is that he tortures her with television, and eventually pulls her in and just smashes her face against the TV. And giving in the immortal line, "This is prime time, bitch," which again is
amazing.
It was actually not. I think some semblance of line was there, but I think Robert Englund improvised that line, or at least made it that. And again, absolutely amazing. And I think it's it kind of I mean, it's funny because I'm not a big fan of sort of 80s cheese in general, but when it's for a like established character like Freddy, who's a bit like that anyway, and you like him for it, I think it works perfectly.
Yeah.
And and it's really it's really enjoyable, and it sort of straddles that line between horror and comedy, which is a really difficult line to sort of go between. Um, but I think it does itself well. I think with this film, I think I enjoyed most of it, and I really liked it. But I think at the end, well, by the end, or at least the third act, I wasn't completely sold on where it was taking the concept. Because I think I'm not a bit. It's funny saying this in the context of Stranger Things, because I think Stranger Things takes a lot from. I mean, the Nightmare films, but also I think it takes a lot from Nightmare 3. But I'm not a big fan of, like, you know, kind of superheroes gathering together to stop Freddy, even though the scenes are very well written and composed, and the dreams, and the scene where the sort of the drug addict girl uh is trying to fend off Freddy, and Freddy has got like fingers of needles, or heroin needles, and then you sort of look at her arm, and her arm is are full of like mouths,
Oh
like
no.
something like that. It's
Yeah.
it's really vivid imagery, and really good. But I don't know. I feel like it I, I I guess it felt a bit too sort of slightly mainstream for me, only because maybe it's like the surfeit of superhero movies at the moment. It's kind of just like I'm not. It's just a gang of kids battling for against Freddy. I mean, I mean, it kind of worked, but I wasn't completely sold on the stuff um, like when they have to find Freddy's skeleton and bury it properly in the Christian way. And the skeleton then rises up in a sort of Ray Harryhausen style, and then
I was a bit
battles them,
confused by all that.
because it was kind of it was just I think it was just a step too far. So like Larry just said, I would have traveled by Eagles, but was told they're only allowed when destroying the One Ring.
He should just left a bit earlier. Don't worry about the Eagles, mate.
um but yeah, so I'm not sure if the third act was carried off complete sort of perfectly, but I enjoyed the rest of it. I enjoyed the characters. I thought they were pretty fun. um and and you saw I kind of, and the monsters were pretty fun as well. It's funny
Yeah.
watching the sort of creature designers be interviewed, because there's the sort of very phallic snake monster thing that sort of gobbles up Patricia Arquette. Um,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
funny seeing the creature's the creature, the guy who designed the creature was saying, he was kind of being slightly evasive, and he said, well, for me it was just a giant penis. That was the sort of like symbolism of that. But
Yeah.
then you see the directors like, oh, we didn't intend it to be a giant penis, because obviously they don't, I guess they don't want to be associated with that sort of thing. But I think it worked. Again, it's kind of fitting in with the sort of the kind of Freudian angle that they're going for. Um, Even though I think a lot of the sort of all the sort of sexual stuff that Freud hypothesized, you know, it has been like, I think definitively disproven. But I still like where it goes, especially actually when it's one of it's I can't remember which, the kid who fancies the nurse. Um, I thought that was
Oh
quite.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking as a straight male myself, I would say that was quite true to life. That the scene where, yeah, I mean, it's obviously a dream. It's quite well coordinated, but you can see that the young nurse is sort of flirtatiously taking the young boy like to the bedroom and then getting naked in front of him, and then Freddy's tongues like grab him, you know. And I think that's again another amazing sort of I'm not sure if it's like a death, but it's kind of, it just sort of grabs him to Freddy's hellish homeland. Frank, so Lawrence just said, also, if you watch that scene with the needles on the arms, Freddy actually misses her arms and awkwardly has to reposition them, and that made it into the film.
Yeah, I did think that. Yeah, it was interesting.
Mm.
I wonder when he's going to get. So, like, yeah, I haven't got too much to say on it. I've watched it lots and lots of times. You've kind of touched upon everything, really. I would just love to have heard Jess's views on this as a first watch. So, did you, if you're ranking it, giving it boners, what are you thinking?
I think I would give it 7 boners. I think I would have given it 8 if I liked the ending more. But I think this was a vast improvement on the second one. Okay. In terms of ranking, I'd put the first one first, the third one second, and the second one third at this stage.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. I actually quite like the second one for what it's worth. Not far off the third one.
Yeah,
but
that's another thing that's like a big improvement on the second one, is that, I mean, a good research never goes to waste when it comes to making any kind of story. And you could see the research in the first one, you could see the research in the third one. With the second one, you can't see any research really. You can just see writers and directors sort of scrabbling to try and get a concept and not carrying it off very well. Whereas with the third one, they're clearly trying to revitalize it, and they clearly research into Freud's theories of dreams and stuff like that, and try and sort of go into that. And I think it really works, and I think it's more effective that way. Again,
what do you think, Dan? Dan, what did you think? If you how many boners are you giving it? I'm interested to know. Any of you in the group chat, just let us know. So I would say 7 for me. Close to 8, because it is a lot of fun. But 7, some really good kills. I love the stop motion stuff, although it looks at times very unrealistic. It's still fun, and I like that. And there's lots of films, as you know, I watch like that. So it was all good. So yeah, I would go for 7, but it's all downhill from here, really. When our next, because I know we are doing 4, 5, 6, 7, Freddy, Jason, and probably revisit that crappy remake. So we got an exciting, well, at least 6 weeks. So look forward to that. So Larry's given it 8 bonus. Great film, bit cheesy, but good fun. Can't beat the first, but my favourite sequel from the franchise. So the Dream Child, not for you then, Larry, I presume. So yeah. Now, I don't know if you watched Dan's Hot Pick.
I haven't, no.
Okay, I'm. Yeah, let's move on to Dan's Hot Pick. Indeed. Indeed. So Dan picked Skin Deep. Skin Deep. Okay. Right. Let me bring up my little. I'm not on it, so I'm not going to have to, because I've got to do too much talking for me, and I'm not even doing that much. A family vacation is turned into a nightmare when they're abducted by a family of deranged killers. Sounds like a lot of other films. Pretty much that could be any film. Now, there are some odd characters in this. One of them being what's his name? What? You're not allowed to. Oh God! Right, without upsetting everyone, because a small person. Right, here we go. Small person.
Yeah,
was in He's British. I'm trying to remember his name, but he was the Leprechaun guy. And he's also in the Ewoks, and he's in all the Star Wars, Harry Potter's, everything else.
Warwick Davis. You mean?
Warwick Davis, yeah.
Mm.
So he's a small person. Is that we're allowed to say that? These
Yeah,
days?
yeah. So I think small person, little. But I think dwarf is acceptable as well these days.
I don't want to call him a dwarf. That sounds like something from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I know.
It?
It's a weird. It's weird. I mean, it's officially accepted that the dwarf is on. But yeah, little person.
You're not. You can't say midget though, because
you can't say midget. Midget is
wipe that bit out.
Outlawed.
Yeah. So he's in it. There's some brothers. He's in it, and he throws plates at people. So his killer move.
Okay.
Right. He's got these plates, proper dish plates, plates, eating plates, dinner plates, and he throws them like frisbees, and they take your head off with them. So that's his special power. There's another guy who's got like this mask on, and he's got metal teeth, and he chews on people. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this film without giving it away totally, because it's bloody mental. I can't believe Warwick Davis was in it. Like
why?
What? I don't. It's just kind of how the film was. It didn't. It's certainly not a Hollywood blockbuster, and it's not even on Leprechaun level. I don't think Leprechaun's a lot of fun, but it is a good film. Right, Dan is right to pick it because it's interesting, but I can't believe he was in it. And there's a fight between him and some kind of old granddad that's just amazing. I think the granddad pulls his head clean off. I would recommend. I think I watched it on YouTube. I think it was free. So that was on there, and yeah, it was just a little bunch of people. There was people that lived around them as well. They weren't part of this, and they were involved. I don't know what to say. I can't really explain what was going on. There was things on people's heads they were rubbing. It was just confused me the whole time. So Dan, you done well with that one, and I don't know what you thought about it. I hope you did watch it because it is your bloody hot pick. So, yeah, interesting. I would have loved to know Larry, but anyway, I think we probably should do this as a main feature one day because I just want to know your views on it because it is an interesting one. But I'd give it 6, probably 5 to 6. Warwick Davis was amazing. He was dancing a lot and doing twists and turns and all sorts of mad stuff. Yeah, quite an actor. But anyway, yeah, we'll get back to that one. So let's move on to what we watched this week.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Now, okay, let's start with the first one I've watched. So I watched Final Destination 3, which is the one with the roller coasters at the beginning.
Yeah. Isn't that Mary Elizabeth Winstead? Is that right?
I'm not sure. All I remember is the roller coaster and the tanning machines.
Oh yeah, that's I remember the tanning machines.
So there's the tanning machine. There are some very funny characters in this. There's some great music in it. There always is in Final Destination. There's always good music. So basically, this time they're meant to go on a roller coaster. The girl, I think she gets on it, but screams and gets back off because she has a vision that, like the other films, that they're all going to die. So the usual happens is those that get off, the first one who was going to die is the first one that death or whatever it is going to take out in a very horrible way, because each kill is amazing, isn't it? So like the two girls, they're like, how would you call them without upsetting anyone? They're probably a bit stupid, but quite pretty and just
I mean that I think that was a classic sort of like, I don't know, the sort of horror character in the sort of noughties and maybe the early sort of tens as well, was the sort of ditzy, stupid women who are only interested in sort of beauty and sex and stuff like that, and that they're often sort of seen as the annoying ones, and they have to be killed for that, basically.
They have to be killed for that, but they die in an amazing way in a tanning machine. So they're in what causes it? The drink spill on the machines or something.
But I think that's that's another thing which is quite. I swear I saw that in another film. I think there's a film called I think it's called like Bloody Mary or something. Obvious concepts. People say Bloody Mary to the mirror. She appears. She kills
I think
you.
I might have seen that. Yeah.
And the same thing happens there in a tanning bed where someone like burns up, and it's sort of and it's quite interesting because I maybe it's because like tanning beds were a sort of newish thing, and they were exploring like ways it could go wrong. So it just sort of like burning to a crisp is like the way to go.
Oh, she keeps her pants. The other girl goes, "Why have you keeping your underpants on?" And she's like, "Well, my boyfriend likes the tan lines."
Yeah, I mean that's another. I mean that feels like another sort of scene that was obviously written by a man.
Right, definitely. So just rolling back to Dan because I think he's on a 5-minute delay. Have watched it. It's amazing. A lot of things going on, and the plates are amazing. From the small person, the dwarf. Well, for what? I think we should do that as main feature. So, yeah, everyone near enough dies in the end of this film. It's a lot of fun. I can watch any of these. I don't care what anyone says about Final Destinations. You can just pick them up and watch them and put them down. It's easy watch, isn't it? There's some great. There's always great kills in it. And some great music. I think I watched this with my middle one. He enjoyed this. I have started watching the Masters of Horror because I'm getting right into this Tubi TV thing. So all the Freddy's Nightmares are on there, Masters of Horror on there. I listen to the Mick Garris podcast, and I think he set all this up and something to do with producing Masters of Horror. So Toby Hooper will direct one episode, and cool. All these famous directors. So I think I'm into number 3 at the moment. They are very, very good, actually, what I've seen so far. And the first series, and both series are actually free on Tubi TV. If you're in Britain, in England, get a VPN. It's amazing. Highly recommend. I finished watching Castle Rock Series 1.
Oh, yeah.
At last. That, I got a bit confused towards the end, as you can imagine. But it was good. It had obviously the guy who plays Pennywise is in it. He's one of the main characters, but he's not actually Pennywise at all. He's not Pennywise. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I'm just a bit confused by the last couple of episodes. So I've got series 2 to watch, which I'm going to start soon. Now, I'm going to talk about this, but I really want to talk about it with Larry because it doesn't look like he's coming on tonight. So I watched that True Blood spin-off, The Northman. So I purchased it, obviously. Got it. It's nothing to do with fucking True Blood.
Well, we tried to say this to you.
But it didn't make sense. I thought you were winding me up again. Because Eric Northman's in it, right? I'm watching the trailers and I thought it was like some prequel thing, like how he became Eric Northman. And it was nothing to do with that. Also, he's a guy. He's playing. It's not even called Eric Northman.
No,
I don't even know what he's called, but his surname's not Northman anyway. So his dad, he is. You say he's a prince or something?
So Prince Amleth. He's
Amleth. Yeah. So he's Prince Amleth, and his dad is killed.
Yep.
And he has to avenge his death. But there is a kind of scene within it where he's taken to act like a dog, and they drink some stuff, and then he promises, he's going to be king one day, blah blah, and avenge if something happens to his father, and that's because his father's died. Years later, he has to avenge his death. It's a really interesting film, actually. I really, really liked it. It's much, much better than The Lighthouse, I would say.
Yeah, well, both Lawrence and I suspected that you would prefer this over.
It's much better than Lighthouse. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot, it's an interesting film. What was the other one of his that we had to watch?
The Witch.
The Witch actually is all right. I like The Witch. That's a pretty good film. So I'm going to watch it again soon. My old man, my dad, said, I'm never getting those fucking 2 hours back of my life. So he didn't think it was that good. He probably thought it was a bit too arty for him. He's probably right.
The Northman.
Northmouth. So Dan at the moment is in Hamburg. He's touring Germany, and he did say somewhere else as well. It might have been Denmark, I think. Which I'd like to go to there. I don't know about Germany. I'm going to Holland next year. I know that. I'm going there. So he's traveling around drinking beer and eating sausage, I think, which he likes to do. Yeah, so that was that Northman, good stuff. We'll watch again. But I feel a little bit like they let themselves down, because that could have worked well with True Blood if they had made if Eric Northman had been the Northman, it would have made complete sense.
No, I don't think it would have done. but seeing as it's
he didn't die at the end of the film, the Northman. He got bitten.
Yeah, but
and turned.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then True Blood.
Yeah. Okay. But are you sort of missing the fact that the Northman is set in the 10th century, and that True Blood is set in modern times?
Yeah, but because he got turned, they don't age after that. So 1,000 years doesn't matter. It's 1,000 years. It's not going to age. So you can see what they could have done with this.
But I doubt.
They got their heads together.
I also doubt that Rob Eggers has seen True Blood. I don't want to make too many assumptions, but someone as I don't know. I don't want to sound too snobbish.
Why would you call it The Northman and get the guy who played Eric Northman to do it?
Because I'm not. I think it's
don't make any sense. I just thought he was being clever, mate.
I don't think so.
No. So anyway, that's what I've watched, and I've had a lot of fun. There's so many bits and pieces I'm watching at the moment, and the other thing I'm just going to talk about this quickly. I was reading a book called Revival by Stephen King for a long time. I finished the book and couldn't remember anything that happened in it, because I only read at night, and for some reason I just didn't really get it. And I'm a good reader, and normally I'll remember stuff, but with this book I couldn't. So I did the Audible kind of thing, got my free one, and listened to that over the last 2 weeks. I think it was like 14 hours or something. The last hour of that is just amazing. So dark, so scary. It is. You read half of it, didn't you?
Yeah, I read half of it.
I think you need to finish it, because that seriously takes itself to a dark place, and I think that's one of the best books he's ever written, to be honest.
Cool. Well,
in all honesty, because that last hour and a half of it is just so dark, so good, so scary, and it makes you think a bit about life in general, really. So yeah, I'm pleased I redid that. So anyone out there, go and listen to that. If you got, like I have, I've got time. I work on my own a lot, so I can stick my headphones on and listen to things like this, podcasts, etc. And it's just well worth a visit. 14 hours of your time, it's nothing. It's a very good book. So, Ewan, what did you watch this week?
Yeah, so I suppose I'll start with most relevant. I started watching The Baby, which is on Sky Atlantic.
That movie. Is it a movie?
It's a series. It's
different babies. What I've seen now.
Yeah, so it's sort of it's an 8-part series, probably half an hour each episodes. Initially, I wasn't entirely sure about it, because the premise is that it's basically this woman, this 38-year-old woman whose friends keep on having babies. and she's kind of sick of it because she doesn't want to have kids, but she keeps on being pressured in some way to have children. So she tries to go to sort of this shack by a cliff to sort of get away from it all, and then she realizes that she sort of stands outside. It's in the dark, and then a woman suddenly falls from the cliff, and she's dead, understandably. And then she sort of like looks over and then looks up, and then a baby suddenly falls out, and this woman has this baby, and this baby, I mean, it looks very sweet, looks very cute, looks like it can't be evil in any way,
They all like that. They're all like that, mate.
yeah.
Believe me.
But
At the
it turns
beginning.
out that this baby is very evil and has the sort of the power to make people die, basically. So don't go too near it. But for some reason, this baby kind of this isn't too much of a spoiler because it's found out by about episode 2. But the baby kind of sort of rotates through different mothers, and this is like the latest mother to sort of look after it. So the baby has someone to look after him, and then the baby just does its business. It's a really interesting series because I actually thought that because it's 8 episodes, I was kind of like, how are they going to string this concept along at 8 episodes? Because it could probably make a decent enough film and could fit a decent an hour and a half out of it. But here you've got 4 hours worth of material, and it does it very well actually, because it delves into each episode is unpredictable to the point where you have no idea where it's going to go. It goes into like weird culty territory by sort of midway through the season, and it's really effective. And once you realize how evil the baby is, it's really hard to sort of think of it as cute anymore. And I think it's kind of it's mainly about like forced motherhood, or sort of motherhood where it's like the mother feels obligated to have a child even though she doesn't want to have one, or something like that, and the kind of the pain that comes from that and the cycle involved. Because if you have a baby and you didn't want a baby, or you don't want children full stop, and you still have a kid, then that obviously affects the kid in some ways. And it's sort of I guess that's that sort of cycle of it all, and the sort of the don't mean to sound too political, but the sort of the patriarchal powers that be, like forcing mothers to have children, because that's sometimes what a lot of men see women as, is that just to have sex with and then to produce babies. And I think this series is meant to sort of like capture that, but in the most sort of horrific, surreal form. And I ended up quite enjoying it. It's a really good series, and I think it should yeah, you should check it out. I don't think it will get a massive following.
I think I will actually. What was that on?
It's on Sky Atlantic.
I have got that at the moment. Yeah,
it's well worth checking out. I've also I haven't finished yet, but the Umbrella Academy season 3 on Netflix. The Umbrella Academy is a kind of it is a superhero series, but one of those that's sort of away from the mainstream entirely. I actually really enjoyed the first 2 seasons. I thought it was really sort of irreverent and radical and wacky, and it's about a family of superheroes who are brought up, but they're brought up by a really, really bad dad. And they end up having really sort of emotional, psychological problems as adults because of it. And it's a really dysfunctional family drama, really. And the thing I like most about this season is that it stars Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page, before he transitioned into a man. And they cover that really, really nicely, because in the first 2 seasons it was Ellen Page, and for this season it's Elliot Page. And they cover that transition really beautifully and really wholesomely, and I don't think I've ever seen that on TV before, where it's just accepted like straight from the off. However, I think this season loses a lot of the oomph that made the first 2 seasons really good. I thought the first half of season 3 was all right. But the basic premise is that they keep on having to try and stop the end of the world. And they did that for the first 2 seasons. And it's happening again with the 3rd season. But you can still see For some reason, they take it in a direction where they're like, we actually can't be bothered saving the world now. Which is fine at first, but to string that along over several episodes, I think I think you kind of lose the energy which it once had. I've still got the last episode yet to go, so I'll leave it for that. But it's fine. It's an entertaining show. I think the main reason why it's not as good is because these seasons are about 10 episodes long. And with the third season, I think they're really scrabbling to fill those 10 episodes, even though like I think probably 6 would have done fine. So it's worth watching, but I don't think it's as good as the other two.
So that's a superhero thing, is it? Or
Yeah, they all have powers and they all try and save the world. Yeah,
I did start. I'm halfway through that Doctor Strange film.
Oh yeah, the Multiverse of Madness.
I only got halfway through.
Yeah, are you intending to finish the rest?
I think I will.
I don't blame you, to be honest, because
I think I will. Yeah, unless it's really going to improve, which I don't know. Maybe Larry will say it gets a lot better, the last act. But
yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, Lawrence really likes that film, although he can see the faults in it. I really didn't enjoy it at all. I mainly because you sort of see things that people have done much better, and here it's kind of.
I didn't like the special effects quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of that looked crap as well. Like it had gone backwards. Or maybe it was just too much. I don't know. But anyway, maybe I'll finish it and talk about it. I haven't seen Spider-Man yet, so it's probably not out. So.
Maybe. I also saw. I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but Under the Banner of Heaven, which is coming to the UK next week. I think it's been in America for a few weeks now, but it stars Andrew Garfield and Daisy Edgar Jones. Andrew Garfield is set in Salt Lake City in Utah, which is like the hub of Mormonism, or the Church of Latter-day Saints, as they like to call themselves. And it's about a murder that takes place. So the murder of Daisy Edgar Jones's character, and how it's kind of it was kind of facilitated by like some kind of like division in the Mormon church. I've only seen the first 2 episodes, so I don't know the full story. It's a true story. And it's a really interesting one because it's sort of these because everyone in like Salt Lake City, I'm not gonna say everyone in Salt Lake City, but it seems like the community of Salt Lake City is it sort of embraces Mormonism as their main religion. And you can see this detective who's like a strict Mormon, and he's trying.
He's absolutely hanging, mate.
Yeah, Dan's just commented saying, "Looks like Ewan has a hangover." Yes, absolutely true, Dan. So yeah, so they're just trying to under the banner. I think they're trying to find out who murdered her and her child, actually, and and it's really because just seeing religion play out against like the laws of their religion colliding with the laws of the land. And again, I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but it's really good so far. Also, I've been playing Stray, which is a new game that came out.
PlayStation now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on PC as well. It's on PC as well.
It's on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, 4, 5, and
okay, so I can get it then. I've got a 4 Pro, but I haven't got a 5. So
yeah, this was on PC, so it's not.
It's meant to be quite relaxing. I've watched some like YouTube stuff of it.
It is quite relaxing. I think I expected it to be slightly more relaxing than it is. Because there are moments where you have to like run and avoid these things called. I think they're called Zerks, which are kind of like they remind me of like the head crabs in Half-Life 2. But sort of like marshmallowy versions. They sort of grab on.
How much was it?
I spent about 25 quid on it.
Okay.
So it's not a large game.
No.
But it is really you. For those who don't know, you play a cat in a kind of cyberpunk world that's sort of populated by sort of sentient robots who have a kind of human consciousness. And this cat suddenly comes across this community, and Yeah, you sort of go about and you do sort of tasks for them. I kind of wonder what came first in terms of concepts. I wondered if it was the cat concept that came first or the cyberpunk concept came first, because I kind of like the idea. It's funny because I wasn't sold on the cyberpunk stuff at first because I thought it would just I didn't know that much about the game when I bought it. I just knew it was really good. Because I would have liked it if I was just like a cat, just doing usual cat things, if you know what I mean, just sort of like moseying around and stuff.
Just
So I wasn't,
pissing and scratching
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
So
basically. So I wasn't convinced by the cyberpunk stuff at first, but they really lean into it, and then it eventually charmed me. And you sort of climb up buildings and do tasks for people, and it's all about because they're in this very closed off community, and they're kind of shielded from what they call the outside, and they don't know what's really on the outside, and they're sort of aiming to try and get on the outside path. And basically your task as a cat, I think this cat is in some way sentient as well because it can kind of understand what these people are saying. You have to try and help them out with what they're doing, and cats can crawl through spaces, can run really fast, so that's a sort of benefit to them. And yeah, it is quite relaxing, except for there are bits with like intense conflict where those sort of kind of head crabby things just like pile onto you, and it's sort of like there's a certain degree of problem solving about it. I actually wondered whether this was like a sort of a very good trial run for something much better, much like how Portal was. Like Portal came out, it was almost like a mini game, or like a small game, and then it evolved into Portal 2, and that was like a proper game with sort
yeah,
of proper context. So I wonder if they're going to do the same with this, because this has been quite popular. And then you got elements, you got sort of it's like there's some like Naughty Dog elements. So you got there's like think the things reminded me of The Last of Us, just in terms of like the post-apocalypse, and there was sort of like even sort of Crash Bandicoot vibes, just in terms of
yeah.
like running away from certain things, and I think in terms of the gameplay, and like again, like as I said, like Half-Life 2, there's the head crabs, and there's a sort of feeling of unease about that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I've only played like 2 hours of it, but it's yeah, it's really nice. Buy it.
And yeah, I'm playing Back for Blood. Is it Back for Blood? I'm playing Evil Dead.
Hmm.
Still the new game, which is hard. I'm finding that quite hard work. Yeah, that's about it at the moment. All right. Thanks, Ewan. Next week's Dan's hot pick is going to be One Cut of the Dead, which
Yes.
which I have seen a couple of times.
Yeah, and I
So,
think is that the found footage or the documentary one?
Yes, it's is it Chinese or Japanese, Korean?
Yeah, because
It's one of those. It's on Shudder, I think.
yeah, because it's interesting, because I mean that was made for quite a low budget, I think, that one, and then
It's very,
they
very good,
actually
clever.
they actually remade it, and
Hello?
the remake opened this year's Cannes, which is quite bizarre in some ways, but I think I don't know if it was an American remake. I think
No.
it was either American or French, but I can't remember. But yeah, the remake got mixed, and people were like, "Why are you remaking this?" The first one was fine, so we're quite interesting to watch. I might try and watch that.
Yeah, Train to Busan they've remade, like American.
No, I'll try
It might be
yeah.
called Train to New York or something. So it's
Yeah.
something stupid like that. But like
Yeah.
they've remade that, and that's going to be out soon. Next week we're going to be on what episode? We're going to be 88, I think, which is going to be Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. So I look forward to hearing what you think about that. Hopefully, the other guys will, let us know what they thought on. Well, Jess, really, what on Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's the Bones Horror Pod. We nearly have 1,000 subscribers, which is big for us. We are probably 6 or 7 away from that now. So if you want to subscribe on there, please do. Get us to 1,000. YouTube as well. That's rocketed the last couple of weeks. So keep subscribing on there. I think we're doing quite well on there, and and the episodes are doing well. So yeah, people are watching and listening. So yeah, you can follow us on Instagram as well with the Bones Horror Pod, which Jess looks after, kind of. And you can email us at it's boneshorrorpod@gmail.com. Wow. I look forward to next week then, Ewan. Hopefully it won't be 2 weeks again. It'll be a week. Hopefully next Sunday if everyone's available. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we're only at the hour mark. That's amazing. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Bye.
You're ignorant.